During the risk assessment stage of the audit, auditors have a special responsibility to specifically be on the outlook for fraud. So we need to distinguish fraud from just run-of-the-mill errors that might be made by the accountants. So, if you're making a journal entry and you enter it incorrectly and there was no malicious intent, it was just a mistake, that's just a run-of-the-mill error. Fraud is different in that it's an intentional act where somebody's using deception to result in misstatements of the financial statement. So we want to be specifically looking out for fraud, and actually the auditing standards require us to look for fraud at this stage in the audit process. And there's a couple of different types of fraud. So there's fraudulent financial reporting, where basically management is misleading the end users by indicating incorrect amounts in the account balances that show up on the financial statements. And then there's also misappropriation of assets, which typically involves some type of theft, whether it's theft of money or physical assets like equipment or inventory and things of that nature. We have some examples of different types of both of these categories of fraud. One of the big ones that we see come up is recording fictitious sales. So the revenue accounts are an area of significant interest for auditors when we're talking about fraud, because there's incentives to overstate revenue to make our profitability and net income look better. So auditors carefully look over revenue accounts. We're going to specifically address the auditing of revenue later in the course when we're looking at the risk response stage of the audit. Also, the capitalization of items that should be expensed. So, when we capitalize an item, that means we create an asset out of it. So we see this a lot, when we purchase equipment, right? We're going to use equipment for years and years. We want to follow the matching principle, where we're trying to match revenues and expenses in the proper period. We want to match the expense in the period when it actually helps us create revenue. So if we buy a vehicle, for instance, and we're going to use that in our business, and we expect for the next 5 years that vehicle is going to help us earn revenue, we create an asset when we first purchase the vehicle, right? We add it to a vehicle or an equipment account, and slowly we expense it over time. The issue is some companies might capitalize items that should fully be expensed. And what happens there, they're not recognizing the full extent of the expense up front. So they're basically underreporting their expenses, which can give us an overestimate of net income. So you want to really be on the lookout for those couple factors when conducting audits. And when we see misappropriation of assets, there's typical theft of that we can think of just somebody walking out of their workplace with some of the inventory or equipment. But there's other kind of more difficult to detect forms of theft. Employees remaining on payroll after ceasing employment. All right, this is a really popular type of fraud that's actually committed in practice. So again, later in the course, when we're looking at the risk response area of the audit, we're going to focus on payroll and talk about different ways that we audit the details of the payroll account, all right, to figure out if expenses are legitimate. And a lot of times that's tying back journal entries, recording payroll expense back to source documents, making sure that people we're actually sending checks out to actually are in fact still employees of the company. Now, when we're trying to analyze fraud, we look at what's called the fraud triangle. So basically, this is 3 different factors that affect potential fraud at a company. So first off, we have to have the opportunity to commit fraud. So there has to be a possibility that an individual can commit fraud. They have to have some type of pressure, and this could be on an individual level, or this could be pressure on the company overall. And also they have to have a rationalization. Most people kind of come up with rationalizations to justify their behavior when they're doing something wrong. So typically you're going to have all 3 of these factors at play when fraud's committed. So as auditors, we want to take a look closely at each one of these factors to kind of scan out to see if there is a high level of potential for fraud within the organization. So let's look at each one of these factors individually. We have here some company-specific incentives and pressures that could potentially increase the risk of fraud. So we're looking at this now from the company's perspective. Of course, we could also have individual pressures. Let's say an employee at the company is facing personal financial hardships. That's a pressure, that's an incentive for them to commit fraud. Right here, we're looking at things at a higher level, why executives at a company at large might want to commit fraud. One of the big ones, obviously, is falling profits. All right, if profitability is going down, that could have a bunch of ramifications, possibly could lead to the bankruptcy of the company. So it's more likely that in more difficult economic times or challenging business conditions that we're going to see a rise in fraud being committed. And management is under a lot of pressure from the expectations of the market when we're talking about publicly traded companies. So analysts have an expectation of what earnings per share should be for a company for a quarter, for a year. And if management's going to fall below those expectations, that typically has a negative impact on the stock price. All right, so the greater the pressure there is to meet those market expectations, the greater incentive there is to commit fraud. Also, the idea of bonuses to executives can affect the likelihood of fraud. If a large portion of executives' compensation is tied to bonuses, that can be a red flag that potentially there's a greater likelihood of fraud within the company. So those are kind of the incentives or pressures to commit fraud. Then we have to look at the opportunities. So remember, we have 3 parts to the triangle. Opportunities can occur in a bunch of different ways. If we have significant adjusting entries and reversals after year end, all right, that could be an opportunity for folks in the company to commit fraud. So that's something you want to be on the lookout for. As an auditor, there's been several cases where fraud's been committed where companies book fictitious revenue at the end of the year. So they pump up their revenue numbers to increase their profits. Let's say they do this at the end of 2022. Then at the beginning of 2023, they reverse those revenue entries. All right, so they're artificially inflating revenue in 2022, all right, to try to make their financial position look better than what it is. Also, a high turnover of staff with accounting or internal control responsibilities, that could provide an opportunity to commit fraud. If we have a lot of experienced personnel leaving the company, it might make existing employees they may find it easier basically to commit fraud because you don't have the same oversight as if you had those long-standing employees still with the company. And also kind of related to this, an ineffective or non-existent whistleblower system. Basically, it's good practice within a company to have a system set up where employees can let higher levels of management know that there's issues at hand. If we don't have that type of whistleblower system in place, all right, that creates opportunities for fraud to be committed. And the last part of the triangle is rationalization. So basically, this is looking at kind of the mental state of the actors who may perpetrate fraud. We talked earlier in this lecture about what we look at when we're thinking about actually taking on an audit engagement. And one of the big things was the integrity of management. So we discussed the idea that if we think that management might lack integrity, we probably want to stay away from that audit client. And the reason is they're more likely in that case to commit fraud. So we want to be on the lookout for any clues that provide an idea or provide evidence that management isn't operating in the most the fashion that is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Also, we want to think about the attitude they have with compliance. Do they take a lax attitude towards compliance with regulations? Do they follow the rules just because they're expected to follow the rules? Or do they really feel that it's important to follow these rules, for the company's reputation and just to do the right thing? So we want to take this into consideration when we're analyzing the potential for fraud. So auditors are actually required to have a brainstorming session during the risk assessment stage of the audit to try to kind of figure out what factors might be at play that could lead to fraud within the company. So the auditors on the audit team get together, they discuss different possibilities, different areas where fraud might occur within the company. And this is a good opportunity for the senior managers, senior members on the audit team to kind of talk about professional skepticism with the less senior members. And, we talked about these different biases that might be at play when we're trying to exercise professional skepticism. And those more recent audit team members, the younger or less experienced audit team members, they may fall susceptible to availability bias. Information or events that have recently occurred and are readily available might have an undue influence on them because they don't have the same experience as more senior members. Remember, when we initially talked about biases, we talked about there's biases that affect senior management as well, overconfidence bias, for instance. So we want to think about the different members of our audit team and maybe where they could potentially have lapses in judgment when we're talking about professional skepticism. When we're actually going out and trying to figure out the potential for fraud within a company, there's some typical inquiries we want to make of management. We want to ask them if they are knowledgeable of any fraud that has occurred in the past. We want to talk about specific internal controls that they've put in place to mitigate fraud. If there is an audit committee within the company, we should inquire of them what their role is in trying to prevent fraud. And we want to be very, very careful as auditors to extensively document our fraud risk assessment.